reality
therapist perception.
Bachelorette.
Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I am not a licensed therapist, but I have a lot of opinions and some of them are on this show. So here I am.
And today, this is the B side of our Reactivity TV episode where we are talking about Bachelor in Paradise Season 9, Episode 6. And there is a lot to cover, so I want to jump right in.
Yeah, what I can say is that there were basically 5 plot lines in this episode and 4 of them sucked and were boring. And only one of them was interesting. Production, get your shit together because quite frankly, you're getting a D- for this episode.
Well, we are going to get into all of that and more. And before we do, please make sure to like this video and also make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date with everything that is coming your way from us at Revive Center for Wellness.
Yeah, and also please make sure to hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah. I would like to first start off with a question.
Okay.
Is Kat for real, or do we think that maybe this is her trying to like make a name for herself and get a lot of screen time? Because it almost at this point doesn't feel like she's an actual real life human being the way she's behaving.
What makes you say that?
I mean, the delusion is out of this world. The just disconnection from any semblance of reality. In literature, it's called what is it when you have a narrator that
Unreliable.
Yeah, an unreliable narrator. If she is the epitome of an unreliable narrator, we're watching events unfold. We see the events unfold, and then she proceeds to turn around and relay them and narrate them in a manner in which we know they did not happen because we physically saw it in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild to watch. The level of entitlement almost doesn't feel like it could be real.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is starting to feel like this isn't like this is a show she's putting on at this point.
I think that almost feels like a more comfortable reality is that she is like a hyperbole of an insecure woman. Olivia refers to her as a narcissist at one point in the episode.
Soft, which was excellent.
That's another maybe explanation for what's going on. But yeah, I agree with you in that the way that Kat is engaging with people on the beach, her perspective and perception of reality just seems so markedly different than what the rest of us are seeing. And so, yeah, it brings up a lot of question marks about like whether or not this might be purposeful. And as I said, I think that for me, it feels more comforting because the actual reality that this is how out of touch with herself and with the world around her she is really concerning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of the world around us, did you happen to catch that on X, formerly known as Twitter, Kylie and Olivia got into some beef?
I heard about this.
Yeah. So apparently Olivia calls out Kylie, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically calls her out as an instigator, which, provided some, anecdotal evidence to support that. Kylie then responds back in a rather heated fashion. They go back and forth. And then Avon, like a complete dumb, jumps into the fray. And Avon, who is, we've said many times, actually seems pretty boring. He's kind of got this nice guy perception. He might have shattered that with how he responded back. He did not get a good look. Olivia definitely, she won that. Kylie just take the L and walk away. But it all kind of begs the question, is Kylie an instigator?
I think is Kylie a mean girl? And maybe a mean girl and instigator go hand in hand, but there's certainly some evidence in this episode to support that in terms of being an instigator, which I definitely want to get into when we get into the, John Henry, Olivia, Kat love triangle. What I do want to say though, is my opinion for Olivia has really, really shifted over the last 6 episodes. At the beginning, I found her to be, a little annoying. I enjoy her. I root for her. She seems really authentic and fun. And I find her to be a really reliable narrator. And I've really, really enjoyed seeing her on our screens. And while she didn't get much screen time on her season, I'm so glad that production brought her back because she is what is giving us everything we need on this season of Bachelor in Paradise.
Yeah, we've touched on it a few times. She's grown on me tremendously. I think that she's a great narrator. I was saying how her and Sean were kind of the two gender sided narrators, and we lost Sean. And she's actually kind of now picking up the slack that Sean's gone. So
Mhm.
she's doing a fantastic
Yes,
job.
thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, and she's fun,
Mhm.
and I do want to get into some of the stuff that happened with her this episode in a little bit. But all around, I'm happy she's on the show. I want her to keep around. I think we're getting signs from production that they want her to stick around. So I think she's going to be safe, all things considered. Even though this John Henry stuff, spoilers coming, is getting a little dicey for her,
Mhm. Mhm.
which I think speaks more to maybe John Henry's stupidity than it does to her inability to continue to play the game well.
You were just coming in hot today.
You know what? I reined it in. I made all my notes, and I'm like, oh, that one's no, I can't. That one, I scratched a few of them out. So yeah, just think how blistering they were to start with.
Between part A and part B, we're just letting it fly.
Oh, we're getting some dislikes. Maybe get some unsubs on part A. But I do want to just bring up one other kind of thought I had this week. Again, me being new to the entire franchise. One of the things I noticed is that what I really like about Bachelor in Paradise over the straight Bachelor or Bachelorette show is that the cast actually does change. When we saw the first, whatever it was, dozen or so people that were on the beach, I was like, this is gonna be really freaking dull if I get to sit there and watch, these people. And it's like, okay, one or two people come, but they really do cycle in and out.
Mhm.
And it is,
Mhm.
if you looked at where we were in episode one and where we are
Mhm.
now, it's completely different.
Mhm.
And it's way more interesting and exciting as things
Yeah.
happen and evolve, where you don't get that same feeling. It's like you know who you're getting, from week one
Sure.
in the regular. However, the flip side to that is that there is sort of an incentive structure put in place in this show. And this is kind of the downside to the structure of the show, where it does mean that the really boring people, like the Aaron B, Eliza nonsense, they actually end up sticking around just by virtue of the structure of the show. And they're the people that you really don't want to see around. The people that, because they're just so boring and
Well,
uncomplicated. I think you used uncomplicated was the word.
yeah, I mean, I don't there wasn't a sense of boredom this week, but I think prior to this week, just because like they seemed fine and like no problems, yeah, unproblematic, I think that's why they read boring, because they just like were getting along with no drama. But here we are, week 6, there's drama.
No,
But
this was manifested drama. It was completely fake drama.
well, we can talk about that. We will definitely get there when we talk about that portion of the episode. But I also want to bring you back to episode 1 of this season, where Rachel was the first person down on the beach, and she had this reaction about being the first one down, and you were asking me what that was about. And the reason is because, as you can see, yes, while there have been a lot of people in and out, who are the mainstays? Those day oneers. And so you are much more likely to stay on this beach if you enter day one, if you are part of the original cast. That's really who remains the longest for the most part. And so that's, but while we are seeing turnover, like we have our core,
Yeah.
handful of people.
Yeah, Kylie's not going anywhere. Avon's not going anywhere. Olivia presumably is not going anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll see.
Poor Sean. Still rooting for you, buddy.
Okay, are you ready to officially get into it?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So this episode had like a lot of different threads. So the overall kind of summary of the episode went something like, Kat, Tanner, breakup, who she will get into in terms of who broke up with who. We also see Jen come down, and that shakes up the equilibrium on the beach. It disrupts Blake and Jess and gives an opening for Tyler to shoot his shot. We also meet Becca, who brings Brayden on a very intimate one-on-one date. Then we get a love triangle with John Henry, Kat, and Olivia. And finally, we end on a cliffhanger as it relates to Aaron B and Eliza with this pot stirring that Kat did. And hopefully Charity has an answer.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about a lot of this stuff. So shall we just start with kind of what I think is the easy one, the Tanner Cat breakup?
Easy in what way?
Well, okay, so you know that you have won the moment, whatever the moment is, whatever the situation is. You know you've won if the person that you are sort of whoever the confrontation is with, they cannot actually say anything other than okay without them looking bad or without them looking petty. And Tanner nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. He came in, he you know, had a reasonable conversation. These are more words we've heard him say in this conversation than in the entire episode. What he said was he pretty much nailed it. He talked about why he wasn't feeling it anymore. He was complimentary to her, even opened with a nice compliment. Um, you know, didn't leave any room for negotiation, but also didn't post any blame. It's was what it was.
Mhm.
And of course, that's not what Kat heard.
Mhm.
But even Kat knew it. The way she left there, she knew he won the day. There was
Mhm.
no way for him to, won the day, whatever winning is. But she knew that she couldn't go off
Mhm.
and flip out on him. And so he kind of got to walk away with an okay, great, we're good. She then, of course, goes off and tells her side of the story, which is not particularly.
I left him.
Yeah, of course.
I walked away from him. I broke up with him.
Yeah. But no, I thought Tanner, that was a masterclass in how to break up with somebody.
I slightly disagree. When I watched it the first time, I thought like, okay, this is good. I appreciated he came right out and he said like, I wanted to be honest and transparent from the beginning. Great, love that. He started to mostly speak in, as you said, in the land of positivity. I've had a really good time getting to know you. I love you as a person. And at the same time, like, I don't think, essentially what I wish he said was, I don't think we are a match. What he said instead is, we have very different personalities. And it was at that point that Kat, as she said it, she basically stopped listening.
Mhm.
And just whenever we have difficult conversations with people, we talk about this a lot on our Wishing You Well podcast. Stay in an I statement. It would have been enough for him to say, I no longer feel that we are a match. I no longer feel that we are compatible. The end. He did not need to go and talk about personalities. He did not have to go and say anything about what he's looking for in a wife and that she's not it. And I think there is an element of also knowing your audience and picking your battles. Kat is a highly reactive and defensive person. He didn't need to belabor the point. It like he just needed to get in and get out, or get in order to get out. And so I think it would have been enough if he had just kept it as, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You know, I don't think we're a match anymore. I've had a really good time getting to know you. I wish you the best of luck. That's it. But the reality is Kat wouldn't have been happy with any breakup at all unless she was doing the breakup, I guess, which in
Which
her
is a
mind,
good thing. That's what happened this
she
episode.
did. But anyway, so overall, I thought, Tanner, really kind guy. He was trying to walk away as the good guy, as the nice guy. I think he was probably like trying to hedge and walk on eggshells, knowing who Kat is, and he's seen what the rest of the people have seen. But that would have been my slight suggestion to him is keep it short, keep it direct, and keep it about you, and have that be that.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, but overall, you'd still rank it as a pass or a fail.
Yeah, pass.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was still a job
Yeah,
well done. Though I do take your
he
point.
kept positive. He could have gone really critical. He could have said like, I didn't like the way that you behaved yesterday. You are immature. He could have like done a lot of finger pointing at her. And I think him saying we have different personalities was his way of trying to say that in a gentle way, but it was just not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just led off with, "I'm sorry, but you have the same color eyes," and so it's
I'm
just getting a
really,
little
I'm
boring for me.
really looking for someone with one blue eye and one green eye,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's not you,
yeah.
apparently. Okay, so they each leave, and this is what I also really appreciated, the breakup debrief that they each
Yes.
had, because watching Tanner and the guys talk about what happened, and watching Kat and the women, or rather Kat talk to the women about it, was quite different. What did you think of that like disparity between those two
Well,
conversations?
okay, so there's a couple things that I really want to talk about here. The first is just from the male perspective. The term "f boy" gets thrown around a lot,
Mhm.
and I thought the guys actually really addressed it. I really like what Brayden said here. Is basically hypocritical, double standard. But at the same time, also wildly disrespectful.
Mhm.
And this is something that's actually pretty prevalent right now across our entire society. Is I felt for the guys. I agreed with Brayden.
The exact quote was, "It's a double standard. When a girl goes on a date with two guys, she is exploring her options, and when a guy does it, he's a fuckboy." And I thought that that comparison was really accurate, as we're seeing it on the show. And I think, yes, something that does happen like outside of the show in the real world and modern dating too.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that if you want to talk about a major criticism that you can make on modern dating from the male perspective, it's that you see oftentimes that women's standards are celebrated even when they're unrealistic standards, and any sort of standard that a man puts is automatically they're shamed for
Mhm.
it. So I'll give you an example. 95% of women have a 6 foot standard height, meaning if a man is not 6 foot, they automatically will not date them, or they'll only date them if they have check every other
Is
box,
that
basically.
95%
95%.
accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
95% of women. I can dig up a study if you want.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, no. Now, if you actually look at women's preferences, when through polling data and survey data, basically women want a man that's going to make $150,000 a year or more, and that is at least 6 foot tall. Okay, great. That alone, ladies, I just want to let you know that that's less than 0.5% of all the men in the United States. And so if 95% of women, according to polling and survey data, are saying that that's what they want, you have 90% of the women in this country going after the 0.5% men. Guess what? Your standard is a little bit unrealistic here, right? But we sit there and say, as a society, no, great, have that standard, hold to that standard, and but then at the same time, if a man were to say, hey, you know what, I want to date a fit woman, that man is canceled. God forbid he say that. And that's the double standard that I think Brayden is sort of touching on here.
Let's talk about a double standard that exists on the show.
Sure.
Kat goes around running her mouth about how Tanner doesn't even open mouth make out. She tells the world, she tells the women, she tells whoever will listen, he doesn't open mouth make out. And no one says a word. If Tanner were, or any guy on the beach, were to go and criticize a woman for the way that they engage in a sexual or physically intimate activity, that would not fly at
I'd be
all.
over. Canceled. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every person on that beach would gang up on him. Absolutely. Yeah.
And we see this, in like across the franchise in terms of double standards. What, like in the Bachelorette seasons, we often see men being really objectified in like really small like speedos and things like that. If the women on the Bachelor seasons were asked to be in bikinis and that be like what the date was, sensationalized and sexualized, again, it wouldn't fly. And so there is this double standard about objectification of men versus women, sexualization of men versus women. And yeah, there's a double standard there for sure. I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio. That was the men's dialogue, was around like double standard, and Tanner's like, oh, this is going to be a really terrible day.
Which was it for him? I don't think it actually was that bad for him.
I think he's fine.
I think he's going to do just fine. Yeah.
And he's got a rose this week, so he's extra fine.
Yep.
And he's with Davia.
Mm-hmm.
He's fine. So then we have Kat's exchange with the women, and she is very, very adamant that she ended it. He was a walking red flag. She walked away from him. It was mutual. And the women are kind of like, okay.
Jess's face said it all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yep, exactly. And there was like a couple of moments where Jess in particular was like, can we just get through this here and move on? I do wonder, like when they're all together like that, is that a production corralling them around being like, hey, we're going to have some powwow time? And like, you just sort of like, I could just see Jess being like, this is stupid. I don't want to be here. Let's just get through it kind of moment.
Well, I don't know. She and Kat are seen together at multiple other aspects. So during this episode in particular, so it's probable that they're friends or friendly. But what I just wanted to note was Davia was sitting right behind Kat, And I don't know how purposeful or not Kat was essentially shit talking Tanner and whoever wants to date Tanner in front of Davia. I don't know how intentional that was to make Davia feel like shit for dating this walking red flag. But I also want to point out that Olivia was there and also like hyping Kat up and being a girl's girl in that like whatever in that
Exchange. Yeah.
scene. Because that will come back later.
Yeah. Yeah.
In her insecurity shows, she just again like shaming him, open mouth make out, keeps saying I'm better than him. He doesn't deserve me, and all of that is projection, right? Like
Mm.
it's all that like we need to just like Uno reverse what she's saying in that what she's actually feeling is I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I deserve better than what I'm getting. So like projection is really, really seeping through here for Kat.
Yeah. So after that conversation, the next event that takes place is we get a new arrival on the beach. This was a rather, I think, boring part of the episode because, quite frankly, we didn't really see much of what happened. From production perspective, they kind of just told us right off the bat it's going to be Blake. And she does pull a few other men, such as Tyler, but we don't even see their conversations. So it just sort of felt like, okay, they're just brushing this along. No one cares. Let's move on. Nothing to see here. The part that we did get to see was Jess's response and reactions.
Mhm.
So prior to Jen coming down, she is wearing actually quite a cute bikini.
Very cute.
Yeah, I like the top a lot with the mesh and everything like
I'm gonna
that.
look for it.
Yeah, yeah, super cute. And she's talking to one of the other girls and says something to the effect of, basically, I'm wearing it for Blake. I want to get his attention, right? And I want to ask your opinion about this because I have a lot of thoughts, and some of them are if you want to get his attention, walk up to him and have a conversation.
Mhm.
It spoke to,
Her whole thing was, well, he's giving me space, so I can't. So she was, yeah, I'm with you. The whole Jess situation showed her immaturity
yes.
here. Um, the whole situation just felt very immature on both of their parts, and Blake too. I'm going to add him in this camp. That there's this whole like giving space thing, but yeah, to your point, if Jess wanted Blake's attention, then go and get it. Not be so passive with it. And so yeah, that like began to rub me the wrong way. And then the whole series of like I can't believe he's going to go on this date.
Mhm.
But like that's selfish of me to say, and just this like back and forth that Jace this back and forth that Jess was having as it related to Blake. And I don't even want to necessarily spend too much time on this. There's really not much to say other than Jess wants Blake to want her, but she does not want him. And I think that was the internal struggle that she was having, along with Blake is a really nice and sweet guy, and I wish I liked him, but I didn't. And I think that part is probably really relatable and a really big part of modern dating. I'm thinking about the guy that I was dating around the same time that you and I started dating. Super sweet
Wait, wait,
guy.
wait. You were talking to somebody else when we started dating?
Yeah, I double booked you, remember? And he got
I
the
mean,
second date
apparently that is cancelable in this that's a big
in Bachelor
scandal in
Nation.
Bachelor Nation. That's a big scandal right there.
Yeah, just call me Brayden.
Yeah.
um, and anyway, so he was very, very nice and very sweet, but there just was no like chemistry there. So I get it. And like, after dating shitty guys, like I wanted to like him. I just like couldn't get there. And so I can empathize with Jess. I imagine a lot of women go through that. And maybe men too. I don't know. Maybe the way that you, okay. A lot of women go through this of like, wanting it to work and try like kind of forcing it and it just not being there. And there's nothing to feel guilty about regarding that unless you continue to stay in it even when you know it's not going to work.
Well, the thing that really annoyed me in this episode was when one of her many times when she's crying and she says, "Nothing ever goes my way." It's like, are you kidding me? You've had multiple guys here falling all over themselves. You've been multiple guys number ones for reasons that I do not understand. And you're just shooting them down left and right constantly. It's like, the only person on the beach who
Mhm.
actually I think has more people interested in them is Kylie. And that's crazy to me.
Well, again, she's cute, she's sweet. Like there are many reasons for people to be like attracted to her. But I think we talked about all or nothing thinking. on like last week's series of reactivity TV. And this is a trap that Jess has fallen into, in this idea of nothing goes my way. That's factually not true, to your point, that she has Blake, who is a very, very attractive guy who's really, wanting to be with her, supposedly. I don't really buy that, given the lack of actual physical intimacy that they have seemed to have. We had Sean be into her, and apparently Tyler's into her too. Who knows? But this idea of nothing ever goes my way creates much more emotion around the situation, because she has got her blinders on to those other pieces of the perspective. What she's meaning is not going her way is that other women have coupled up with guys that she has been interested in. That's what's not going her way, is that who she wants to be with is with someone else. And that's it. And so that's where like all or nothing thinking gets us into such a trap, because it really, really obfuscates, your word, like the greater picture of what's going on, and then makes the emotional experience completely amplified based on that really narrow set of information.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. And I do want to carry us next to their interaction that Jess has with Tyler,
Mm.
because that's where we go now. As things are not going her way, she has a man who is coupled up with Mercedes currently. And again, that was we never felt great or strong about that. We really think that Mercedes was really just, you know, she jumped to Will to get the rose, wasn't going to stick around with Will, so the next available person was Tyler.
Mhm.
So she jumps to Tyler, and now Tyler again. When we talked about grade the game, whatever it was, 2 3 weeks ago, I had postulated the theory that Tyler was just he was smart enough to realize who the gettable girl was. That wasn't who he wanted, and was he the one that I gave the incomplete to
Mhm.
back then?
I think so.
Okay, he now gets his A.
Mhm.
Okay, because he did exactly what I postulated that he was doing, and you said, "Don't be so Machiavellian,"
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
something like that. Um, he wanted Jess the whole time, or Jess was at least on his list of people that he actually wanted. And so now he prepares, he cozies up to her on one of the day beds
Mhm.
and takes his shot,
He literally says, "I've been waiting for an opening."
waiting for an opening.
Mhm.
Exactly. And he shoots his shot here. And obviously, Jess is in a, we'll say, emotionally compromised state. And she is very receptive
Mhm.
to the wily charms of one Tyler.
Well,
And here we
Tyler
are.
was on her list too, so it's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
it's not like it's just some like bum off, the beach.
Sure. Yeah.
It like it was appealing to her as an option as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. And so we'll see how this carries, but she's going to land just fine.
Mhm.
And it does, though, mean that Mercedes is in trouble, and Mercedes is probably, I think, going to be going home here. I think she's run its course. We've talked about we like Mercedes. She seems to be a good dater, but I think having played the game exceptionally well, I think we haven't seen her on screen.
Mhm.
They're also it's been women coming down, not men.
Mhm.
So she might have just run out of runway here, unless a man comes down. Which I don't know why they'd be sending men down, unless for a drama component. I don't think production is sending a man down to save Mercedes at this stage. So I think she's in trouble. But it does also mean that the Blake Jess thing does seem to be done, and I don't think it's going to be a triangle when Blake gets back from the date with Jen.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the date with Jen. Um, talk about another. We talked about 4 of the 5 plot lines are boring as hell this week. Okay, they went kayaking. Nothing seemed interesting. We got bits and pieces of their
Mhm.
conversation. There didn't seem to be a lot of chemistry there for me.
No, I disagree. It reminded me a lot, actually, of the Tanner and Davia date from
Hmm.
last week, as again juxtaposed to Tanner Cat and Blake Jess. As we have seen, there has been very little physical intimacy between Blake and Jess. I don't think we've actually seen them kiss. We've seen them kind of cuddle,
Mhm.
but they don't read like kind of hot and heavy. They don't read passionate in the same way that Tyler and Kat did not. What did we see last week? Davia leans in literally and figuratively, and we see a different side of Tanner. We see him make out with her legitimately
Be
and
interesting.
be in be interesting, be interested. That it was both of them leaning in, right? Whereas we see the same thing happen with Blake and with Jen. Jen is again flirty. She's got an outgoing personality. They are making eye contact. They're talking about making eye contact. They're talking about kissing. Like she is there. She is there to date. And we see the side of Blake that we haven't seen before either. And so like that, while I don't know how like compatible they are, how much like chemistry beyond that moment that they had, but they have more chemistry in that, 30-second clip than we've seen over 6 episodes of Blake and Jess.
Okay, that's fair. I still thought it was a boring date though. And it's not a date I would want to be on. Mainly I just think Blake is boring, and this Jen girl also. I haven't seen enough of her, but she just seems boring to me too.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah,
It's too soon to tell for Jen.
yeah,
Okay, so while we're on the dates, can we go to Becca's arrival?
yeah. So Becca shows up. She was a night tour in her season, right?
Unclear if she was night 1 or night 2, but she didn't
Well,
get a lot of screen time regardless.
yeah, exactly. No one kind of knew who she was. Cute as a button. But it's pretty clear right off the bat that Brayden was very physically attracted to her.
He like literally leapt out of his seat and gave her a hug.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense. She's super cute, super cute. She takes a couple of guys, and again, this is another sort of there's some stuff to talk about here, but another series of events that I found to be rather boring for this episode. You know, Becca pulls a couple of different guys, has a couple of conversations. It's very clear that Brayden is very interested. He makes it very clear in the conversation that the two of them have that he wants to go on this date, and he's into her. She seems to respond well to it and ends up taking him on the date. And here's the thing. Okay. We have seen so many people get absolutely roasted for not just taking the date when they're coupled up, but also the manner in which and the speed with which and the aggressiveness with which they accept the date. But also how they engage in a conversation with the person they are coupled up with. We have not seen a single person leap out of their seat faster than Brayden. We have not seen a single person, literally fireman carry the girl he's about to take on a date in front of the girl he's currently dating off the beach. And even the tone that he took, and like, I gotta have one little conversation before we go, but I am definitely going on this date. And yet nobody said a word. He took no flack for that. So my question here is Brayden just really so likable a guy he can get away with that? Is there edit production stuff that we're not seeing? Because even Rachel, who is not known as a calm, collected, chill girl, seemed to deal with it fine. But they had in their very quick conversation, it was like, no, you don't even need to talk to me. It's cool. Go enjoy. Now, she had some feelings later, but
well, I don't think it was even feelings about Brayden. I think it was disappointment with the situation, but it wasn't like that asshole, that jerk in the way that we've seen anybody else react. But here's some things. Context clues matter. And there were a couple of small phrases that matter that help answer your question about how did Brayden essentially get away with this unscathed while others haven't. Rachel says to the group when Brayden is talking to Becca that they are still exploring things, that they are still open, they're still exploring things. So they have had a conversation that we have not seen that says, essentially, if other people come down on the beach, go explore. Or if there are other connections on this beach, go explore. That has been communicated. What Brayden is known for, and it was criticized for on his season, was his honesty, his open communication and honesty, and people did not like that. It is working so well for him here, especially in this circumstance, that again, they've had this conversation. So that's one piece. There was no expectation that they were going to remain coupled up. They even joked about him going on another date earlier in the episode. So like, again, it was kind of out there. Also, the way that he approached Rachel about, having their little chat before the date was in a tone of jokingness, almost as like we know this is something that I need to do, but like we know this also doesn't really need to be done. It was like hinting at like, yeah, there's like this formality and the structure I need to follow, but like he used like a goofy voice. He had like really goofy body language. And then she received that as like, no, you're good. We don't need to talk about this. So all of those pieces of data, again, indicate that they have had a conversation about where they're at in their relationship. So that is why. And that's what no one else on the beach is doing. Similar to Charity season, no one else on the season was really being honest about where they were at, except for Brayden. Same things happening here. So he is just an honest guy. And I think he also is likable and charismatic. So even when the honesty sucks, it's kind of okay. And they went to a like tantric kitchen, which was like quite an intimate date considering they had literally just met. And I mean, Brayden is clearly
Super
into
into her.
her,
Oh, yeah.
very attracted to her. And I think the feeling is mutual, but we've not really seen Brayden have a reaction to anyone that he's met so far, up until this point. Okay, so going into another thread of this episode, um,
Back on the beach.
back on the beach, we have a love triangle forming between John Henry, Kat, and Olivia. Kat tells people that she is randomly into John Henry today,
It's
randomly
amazing how that
finding him
happens.
hot.
Yeah.
And with Kylie's help, she makes the assist for Kat to shoot her shot.
Yeah, and she gets pretty aggressive with it. I mean, this is
When you say she gets aggressive with it, what are you seeing?
oh well. I mean, she's not like hiding the ball. I mean, she's basically spending as much time as possible with them. She's asking him questions, even though can I just point out when they were sitting down having a conversation about his job. If you watch her face and her responses, she did not care one bit.
Even
Not
I mean,
interested.
yeah, Kat's poker face is not good. She had like kind of like a disgusted look on her face. She was leaned back. Her body language said it all. I'm not interested.
Yeah,
And this is where for John Henry, I'm like, are you oblivious, dude? How are you
he
not
really is.
seeing this?
Well, he
Um,
wasn't even looking at her. And Olivia calls it out later. And in a loving way, she basically said, John Henry is an idiot. He's a handsome idiot, but he really is an idiot.
mhm,
And you kind of saw that this
mhm,
episode
mhm,
where, it's clear that he's desired. He's an attractive guy. He's a nice guy. He's fun. He's friendly. And now that hopefully his nerves have kind of calmed a little bit, like he's a little more enmeshed. He's coming out of his shell a little bit, but like he really is oblivious to
mhm,
everything going on.
mhm.
What I thought was really fascinating was that Tanner was at the bar, like also instigating him on, like, oh yeah, go check out Kat, see what it's like.
Yeah, of course. It's like, no,
Get
get
her
her
away
off
from
my
me. Yeah,
back. Yeah. I was like, good for you, Tanner.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pawn her off on somebody else.
Can
But
I say Olivia's impression of Kat
oh,
actually showed more interest in John Henry than Kat actually did because Kat gives no flirtatious energy off. It felt like an interview. What do you do? Is it dangerous? Meanwhile, when Olivia was doing it, she was like kind of being like playful about it. Kat was doing none of that.
I would date Olivia's impression of Kat before I would date Kat. Yes.
Mhm,
Oh yeah, no. Olivia is great. She's so flirtatious. She's fun. She's funny. Yeah. I mean, she's really won me over in a way, like Brayden has won me over.
mhm,
These two people that I did not like at the very outset. And they're great.
mhm,
But yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Um, there was no emotion in Kat. It was really like, hey, I want a rose. I think you're good
mhm,
looking. I think you're gettable away from Olivia.
mhm,
So like, I'm just gonna talk to you and be around you.
mhm.
Try and open mouth kiss you tonight.
So we see Olivia and John Henry talking about the fact that Kat is showing interest, and Olivia tells him flat out, she's just hunting for a rose, right? And it seemed, I don't know if you caught this, but it seemed like John Henry did not like that. It
Um,
felt like he wanted to believe that this woman who's attractive was really into him. Like, I feel like that was probably not the right thing for Olivia to have said to him.
his response was one of kind of flirty, like, "Oh, are you kind of jealous?" and "Oh, it's cute, I like it," type thing. Um, so I don't think that he necessarily took it that poorly,
Mhm.
right? He didn't shut down. He got closer to her.
Mhm, that's true, and he did say, like, "You're my number one," and they made out despite the lip plumper. So, getting back to this Kat, Olivia, John Henry situation. So, Kat feels very offended by the fact that Olivia and John Henry are kissing near her,
Hmm.
and then she goes on to, when Charity comes down, tell Charity all about the fact that she and John Henry are exploring a relationship. And Olivia just comes right in and says, actually, I'm with John Henry. And he says, I'm his number one. And we're having a lot of fun.
And we got to lotion each other up in a massage and all that other stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I thought that was a nice way for Olivia to sort of jab back at Kat in a way that gives her,
Mhm.
legitimate cover. But I don't think that that's the most interesting part of the Charity arrival. But we'll get to that in a second. Um, yeah, the whole thing with Kat, I think we all know. She is wildly insecure. She's wildly immature. She is delusional with respect to where she
Mhm.
stands in the greater world.
Mhm.
And I think Olivia has a great handle on who she is, who
Mhm.
Kat is. Um, and I think at the end of the day, I am hopeful that even though I've said I like John Henry a lot, he's one of my favorite people on the show, but he is a little bit of a dum dum at times, and I'm just hoping that he picks correctly.
One thing that I wanted to touch on that you just kind of alluded to is you said Olivia knows who she is and she knows who Kat is. And Olivia called Kat a narcissist. And yes, I am a therapist, but no, I will not diagnose or provide an assessment. I did just want to share some characteristics of narcissists, traits of narcissists, and see maybe what Olivia might have been referring to.
Sure,
Okay. So traits of a narcissist include lack of empathy,
check,
grandiose sense of self,
check,
arrogance,
check,
need for admiration,
check,
interpersonally exploitive behavior,
check, check,
dependency or neediness,
check,
sense of entitlement,
check,
expecting special treatment.
check.
And there's several more. But
Olivia, I think you nailed it.
and we're only seeing a really small picture of Kat and who Kat is. So I'm not saying Kat is a narcissist. I'm not diagnosing her with narcissistic personality disorder at all. And she is displaying traits of a narcissistic personality. And so I did just want to highlight that. The word narcissist is thrown around all the time now. And I think it can be really dangerous that like we tend to overuse it and overlabel people. And Kat, in her hyperbolic way of engaging, is showing us kind of an archetype of a narcissistic person. And again, I want to reiterate, I am not calling her a narcissist. I'm just saying she provides good examples of what narcissistic behavior looks like.
Can I call her a narcissist?
You don't have my endorsement.
Oh, okay. Well, it's all right.
Okay, we've made it to the final plot line.
Oh, and maybe the worst and most boring of them all. Just go home, Eliza. Go home, Aaron B.
Okay, I'm going to give our episode a spoiler and say Eliza actually got my rose this week.
Really?
Yeah. And for something outside of this situation, sort of. But
Okay.
so don't be so hard on her.
Well, okay. Well, this is what I want to. I got some before we get into the actual events. I know that from prior reactivity TVs before I stepped in here, you were quite complimentary to Charity. In when you and Catherine would have conversations about Charity, you were very complimentary about her. My entire exposure to her is in these few minutes
Mhm.
at the end of this episode,
Mhm.
and I do not
Mhm.
understand why you were complimentary to her.
Mhm. So I can understand, given if that was your only exposure to her, why you would come away and think like, what was Amy talking about, or why did people think she was a good bachelorette? The only thing that I really liked about Charity's appearance on this episode so far was what she was wearing. I thought her dress was really pretty, and I thought she looked stunning. But this did not match up with the Charity that I knew from her season, and came to really love and respect. I thought this was petty, stirring the pot. But again, I like can't fault Charity for that. She is still under contract with the show. She has to contractually obligated to come down here and play along with whatever they have her do. So I'm not like down on Charity for this. This was just like not my favorite use of Charity here at all.
Yeah. So the quick recap of what happens here is that Kat corners Eliza in a bathroom
Randomly.
randomly, basically says, "Hey, Charity's my best friend." I question that. I don't think Kat is capable of friendship, and says that there's a bunch of dirt on Aaron B. Apparently, he was talking to an ex girlfriend right before he went on the show. Don't know why that matters. And then after he got off The Bachelorette, he was dating another girl before coming to Paradise. And but they're all broken up before he went on the show and before he went on Bachelor in Paradise. Is that not right?
I don't know, and I think the details around it are also so murky. But okay, and I don't. We're not here to like play judge and jury to
Sure.
what
Yeah.
happened because we don't know. Here's what also happened is that Kat told Eliza, I got the dirt on all the guys here. She gave me the rundown and she said everyone was a pretty good guy except Aaron B. Stay far away. And that also, if you remember, first episode, Brooklyn said, I heard from Charity about all the guys here. And after meeting Aaron B, he's actually a nice guy. And I
Yes.
picked up on that actually because I noted that it seemed like it was contrary to what her opinion would be.
Yes.
And so we apparently Charity was warning all of the girls from their season. They were all in Zach's season together about Aaron B.
And that warning is coming from, we find out that a ex of Aaron B
Reached out to
reached
Charity.
out to Charity after the season and said, hey, he was talking to me right before he went on the show.
Mhm.
So here's my first question, because I am quite confused. Why is that a problem? Like, I don't understand. Like, he wasn't dating her, they weren't together. Like,
I think it just like begs the question, was Aaron B there for the right reasons? Was Aaron B actually truthful and authentic? We've seen it way too many times on this franchise. Jed from Hannah Brown season is the like most obvious culprit of someone coming on the show with a significant other and getting literally to the winner spot and being in a relationship the entire time at home. So like there's precedent for this. And I think, when you are the bachelor or bachelorette, there's so much worry that you are going to pick the wrong person or that you only know someone but so much and you're making this like major life decision and you actually wonder again, are they actually here for me because they signed up and said yes before they even knew it was me. So I think there's all of this worry around like there for the right reasons. And then add social media and like all of that to the mix of like why people want to get on the show now. As we said, when we talked about Sean's interview off the show, like it's insane to actually have the reason to go on this show to find love. And so like knowing that there are so many other competing priorities and realities around what being on the show can get you, in addition to love, of course it makes you feel like you like can't completely trust people. So again, I don't think it's necessarily for us to get into in terms of what actually happened, what's condemnable. I think it's more interesting for us to talk about what does happen when someone comes to us with a piece of information about someone that we might be in a relationship with that is somehow potentially contrary and or damning to what we know about them.
yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple steps that you can easily take. First, ask yourself, does this information matter at all?
Mm-hmm.
Two, am I guilty of doing something similar if the camera was reversed? Three, do I care?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I care because I care, or do I care because somebody's telling me to care?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then if you get through all of those, verify the sources.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't believe that Eliza would trust Kat. I can't believe that Kat would just trust a Charity, and I can't believe that Charity just trusted some random person. This is
disgruntled
a
ex.
disgruntled ex. This is 3 layers of people that every one of them should have done some verification or kept their mouth shut about it. And not a one of them appears to have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, my biggest problem is that is like, it's okay to trust, but there's a thing called trust but verify, right?
So I don't know if you know about this, but there are like Facebook pages. I forget what they're called.
Oh yeah, like don't date this guy
exactly,
pages. Oh yeah,
exactly. And
I'm
so this is
I'm on in here.
You might be. So this is something that women particularly do, and there's lots of reasons, right? Like why women specifically might want to do this, like our own worry about safety and whatnot. And I think there is this fear of vulnerability and fear of getting hurt, which mostly drives people to be on these pages and be seeking information. There's also the reason to share information, and that is because you might be a disgruntled ex, not necessarily that you want to protect the next woman. And so I think it is also about like thinking about the motivation for getting this information, right? Like how did the X or again the source of this information, how do they potentially benefit from this?
Mhm.
Is this actually any of my business to know? And like ultimately I feel like in order to be a good dater and someone who is interested in building a relationship that's built on trust, it really is about, okay, I have this piece of information. Let me think about again where it fits into the context of what I already know about this person. And I need to trust myself enough um to know when it's time, like I'm collecting too many red flags and when it's time to then leave. And this is where like I can understand in some way why Eliza was like slightly like, okay, this is really different than anything I've heard about Aaron. Is everything a lie? Like kind of jumping to that extreme again, the all or nothing thinking. And I don't know why this is so unsettling for her, and that maybe speaks to the insecurity that she feels within the relationship already or within herself. We don't, not all of us have the opportunity to have Charity come down on the beach and tell us exactly what she knows. And again, is it any of Eliza's business to really know? How does this impact Eliza at all? What is it that you're worried about learning here about Aaron or his character? All of it just seems unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. My entire take on this is that there's no scandal here. There's literally nothing to see. What really rubbed me the wrong way was actually when Eliza pulls Charity for the one-on-one conversation. And if you watch Charity's body language and what she's saying, Eliza's just trying to get through the opening, like, what am I here to talk about? And she's like leaning forward. Yes, yes, yes. She's chomping at the bit to gossip about this. She's literally just desperate for Eliza to stop talking so that she can get a word in.
I
And
read it.
I literally was like, oh, I don't like this girl at all.
I read that so differently.
Really?
Yeah, I read it as um, Charity knows the question that is coming, and she feels really uncomfortable having the answer, and is trying to think about how she's going to respond. I read it as like an uncomfortable like tick of like kind of like again knowing where we're going here, and how am I going to give this information away? Again, Charity is someone who cares about perception. She is America's bachelorette. Like, so how is she going to navigate this in a way that doesn't make her look petty? So for me, I didn't see it as like, let me tell you, girl, what's going on. I read it as like, okay, okay, we're going
I,
there.
okay. So I would agree with you, um, if she wasn't leaning forward and she didn't have like an aggressiveness to the yeses, right?
I'm so conflicted on this. She gets an A.
D minus. So shall we roll into grade the game?
Let's do it.
I mean, I feel like there's so many that we could do this week, but we do have a tradition of starting with or always doing the new arrivals. So let's start with the new arrivals. You would do Becca?
So with Becca, for someone who had very little screen time on Zach's season, I think she made a really good and positive impression with people on the beach. The guys seem really interested in her. She endeared herself to the most charismatic guy on the beach. Though I guess one difficult thing for Becca is that Brayden does, he talks about cat homie hopping. Like Brayden does also have the tendency to go from, woman to woman to woman. So I'm not really sure how solid of a pick it will be, despite how into Becca Brayden was. So initially I wanted to give her an A, but now I'm also thinking about her conversation with John Henry and 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 also comparing it to her conversation with Brayden too. She just seemed to like not know again how to flirt. She like it was kind of forced banter with John Henry, which he seemed to recognize, she seemed not to pick up on. And then with Brayden, she flat out asked him, "Do you think we could vibe?" And so I think her meter for like what chemistry compatibility looks like is probably a little flawed. So while initially I want to kind of give her an A based on the information that we have, she's probably closer to a B plus or an A minus, just given those pieces of information.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit generous. I'm more in like the C plus range. She got a guy that is gettable, so you got to give her credit for that. But the reality is, I don't think she's a good dater. You already touched on a lot of the points that I would have already made. I don't think she's going to go particularly far in this, in this experiment competition, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
I think she's going to be really great when she's got a date card. I don't know how good she's going to be when she has to fight against a cat or an Olivia.
Okay, so what do you give her?
C plus.
C plus.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Who's next? Jen.
Jen. Yeah. I don't have enough information. She basically came down and pulled a very gettable guy. Good for her. Um, I don't think there's really enough other information. So I'm just going to give her a B because she pulled the most gettable guy. But, I don't know. I don't think we saw enough of the date. We didn't see any of her conversations. She's really just this big black hole right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I have to give like an incomplete. I don't know enough to assess.
All right. Then, I mean, there's a lot of people we could do. Why don't we do Tyler? Because Tyler takes his shot at Jess at the opportune time. I already indicated earlier, I had given him an incomplete prior to that. He gets an A. He did exactly what I thought he was doing. He had his girl in mind. He couldn't get her at the time. He waited for his shot patiently, taking his shot. Sorry, Mercedes, you're probably going home. And now he's got the girl that he ended up wanting. I think he's an A, outstanding A. If we gave A pluses at this university, he'd get an A plus. What about you?
Yeah, I give him an A as well. Very opportunistic. Also, like, kind of leaned into the flattery, leaned into like a little bit of the I know we shouldn't, but let's do it anyway kind of idea. Picked Jess, who he has been interested in, but also was a little vulnerable at the time. So he gets an A. What about Kat? She was really shooting her shot, trying to play the game this week.
So Kat is this interesting character because she is a very attractive young lady. Her personality is what screws it up for her, right? And so she keeps getting opportunities with guys based almost exclusively on the fact that she's really really pretty. Um, and she seems to have gotten John Henry's attention at least enough that he's given her a look. So I gotta give her, a strong mark. I mean, I don't want to, but is it an A minus? B plus, A minus. I feel like I gotta give her an A minus. You know, she started with a guy that she wasn't interested in. You know, um, proceeded to jump to the guy that she wanted, and as soon as that guy doesn't want her anymore, she immediately pivots and at least has the eye, despite all of the evidence and all the situations that have come about. And she's got the guy she just dumped pushing the new guy at her. Got to be at least an A minus, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. Brayden said it. Kat goes after what she wants and she gets it. So she's very, very effective at getting what she wants and doesn't care who she needs to bulldoze to get it. So we see in the previews for next week, she and John Henry exchange like a makeout or something. So she, at least we know, like, is somewhat effective here. And I think she's probably good at like reeling someone in. It's the keeping them that's tough for her. So yeah, A minus. I'm good with you there.
All right, so let's do the other side of that equation, Olivia.
Olivia, I mean, maybe this is my bias coming out, but I give her a strong mark too. I think she's up there as an A minus as well. She did a good job of like, I'm not going to get in the way of, Kat pursuing you. And I want to be very clear that like I'm into you and like still being very affectionate with John Henry, very playful, like compartmentalizing in a way that I think makes sense for this show.
Now, do you think Olivia needs to start looking at another guy?
Oh God. It
And who
would,
would that even be?
yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't even know who it would be. It would probably be a good play to just like dip her toe in somewhere and see who else might be available. But
Just cast a few lines and
who
just
well,
see
who
who
even is
nibbles?
there?
Yeah.
Who even
Haven?
well, would not be something.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we should round it out on John Henry. Um, what do you think about John Henry and how he's now caught in a love triangle? And let's also note that during last week's Truth or Dare, he was very popular. So he's been getting a lot of attention on the show,
Mhm.
but he's really been locked in with Olivia. Um, Now we're seeing how he plays the Olivia cat situation. What do you think of John Henry?
I think he's a little too obtuse, to get an A. I think he's like winning by default. And like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's strategic. I think he's, again, very attractive and like available. And that's what's working. It seems like not putting a lot of effort into playing the game.
Yeah, so he's sort of like the male equivalent to Kylie in a
Mm.
lot of ways, where he's in such high demand that he's just going to be here till the end, and he doesn't necessarily have to do anything. There's enough demand for him that some girl is going to always pull him. He gets pulled for by almost every single girl since he's been there. When it comes down with a date card, so I think playing the game is like a C,
Hmm.
right? He's just one of those guys where it's just gonna work out for him,
Hmm.
so to speak, So, but I think actually playing the game, he's not doing a great job of it.
No, but he's still winning.
He's still winning. Yeah, yeah. Fucking asshole, right? I mean, if all of us could just
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll see. The guys have the roses this week, so he's like in a prime position. We'll see what happens next week when the women have the roses again, like how that works, and he will have to play the game at that point because more guys will likely come
Yeah,
down.
but really, because every girl pulls him. If he's suddenly available, you don't think some of the girls that are currently there wouldn't jump ship to him?
I mean, maybe we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I don't. I think he's fine. I think he's coasting to the end of paradise.
This speaking of end of paradise, we have to think. So Rachel doesn't have anybody that she's coupled up with. She has to send herself home, right? Like
I was going to ask you that actually. Is she a self elimination?
she has to be.
She can't go to a rose
She can't go
ceremony
to a
and not
rose
get a
ceremony,
rose.
not get a rose.
Not as
Yeah.
a bachelorette, right?
It wouldn't shock me if like this like long pacing back and forth on the beach is just a prelude to her sending herself home before the next rose ceremony. That's what
Yeah,
I think we're gonna see.
yeah. I mean, I
She
don't.
has to send herself home.
It really demonstrates what a weak bachelorette she probably was during her season, and nobody's interested in her. And it's not because she's not a pretty girl, and she definitely seems more chill than she was on her season. But like, she just doesn't. She doesn't.
I don't actually think there's any guys that are compatible for her on the
Yeah,
beach. I don't think it's like her. I can't see her with any of these guys.
yeah.
That's the thing. And so I don't think she was like necessarily set up for success. Though part of me is like, I'm not really sure who would be a good guy for her. Like the guys in her season were just kind of like meh. And
She
like
was also overshadowed by Gabby.
by Gabby, yeah. Right. So I think that's a big part of the issue. Like none of these guys are good for her.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wish her luck. But that's my prediction for what will happen with Rachel next week.
Yeah. All right. Shall we roll into Rose and Thorns?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead. Where would you like to start?
Okay. So my rose goes to Eliza, as I said before.
Hmm.
And it goes to Eliza because when Olivia was kind of mimicking Kat when they were on the daybed together, and Olivia was basically saying like Kat is just like kind of a shit starter. She's just blowing up stuff everywhere and started like mimicking her. Eliza said, I don't want any part of that. And I thought that is really hard to do. And that shows Eliza's character and her maturity, which is why I think like the threads of the other things that we see might be a little bit more about editing because this thing that she did actually shows a lot more about her character and her maturity than anything else. This is making fun of Kat would have been really easy. They're not friends, as Eliza said. And Kat just threw this wrench into this relationship that Eliza was really in on. So Eliza gets my rose for being unproblematic and not dramatic. And along with that, my maybe a rose petal goes to Olivia as well, because you can tell a lot about a person by who their friends are. There's that saying, right? Show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. Seeing Olivia and Eliza pair up that way, love that. Love that for both of them. Contrast to my thorn this week goes to Kylie. Kylie is incredibly problematic. While she's been kind of fading into the background with Avon, who is she friends with? Kat. Again, there's that saying again. Show me who your friends are, I'll show you who you are. You want to get down with Kat? That's your girl. That's the girl you want to support. The way that she treats everybody on the beach. Okay. Then you want to purposefully put um, John Henry and Kat together, knowing that Olivia, who you screwed over at the beginning, is into him. Like that's like some passive mean girl stuff that I don't like. And my sub thorn would go to Kat mostly for the hypocritical nature of this like all girls unite girl power stuff at the beginning. You cannot simultaneously be a girl's girl, all for the girls, and then do the things that she did to Eliza. That was her justification to Aaron B. How could I not tell her? Hmm, I know how you could not tell her because it did not serve her, it served you. How you can talk shit about the guy that Davia is dating right in front of her, and how you can go and try to steal Olivia's guy when she has been hyping you up all fucking day. So, this faux girl power thing, I'm not a fan of. Like, you can't have it both ways. And that's so I guess they both get my thorn. I won't even give a sub thorn to Kat. They both get that thorn for just being um mean girls.
Hmm. Okay, so my rose and thorn this week. I like the way Tanner handled that breakup. I do. I know that you don't think it was the perfect, but the fact that he could get out of there without Kat really being able to respond or flip out about anything, that was rose worthy in my mind. So definitely giving Tanner the rose this week. And my thorn for this week is the entire episode. This was the worst episode of the season so far. Production, throw something more interesting at us than this. This was terrible. The best part of it was the cat related stuff, but even that was just a continuation on what you've already built up. And to give us effectively 5 plots and 4 of them to be super boring and just not interesting
Mhm.
at all. I know you got to fill 2 hours, but
Yeah. Well, let's hope that episode 7 is a lot more entertaining and has some more developed story threads than this week. All right. So we will be back next week with Reactivity TV, part A for Golden Bachelor and part B with Bachelor in Paradise, episode 7 across the board. So make sure to check us out then. We also have another podcast, Wishing You Well, which is a wellness podcast where we help you navigate your wellness journey each and every week because living a well life is complicated and not as simple as it seems. So make sure you're checking that out on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. You can also continue to follow along with us on Instagram at ReviveCFW. You can check out our website, revivecfw.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at Amy Albero LCSW. Until next time, we are wishing you well. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye.
see ya.